Okay. This is cause number M332088. Case of style of state of Texas versus Jalen Paul Gasper. Mr. Gasper, would you please come forward? Mr. Gasper, would you please raise your right hand? Mr. Gasper, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God? Mr. Gasper, you may put your hand down. How are you doing, Mr. Gasper? I'm doing good. That's good. Mr. Gasper, I have before me a document. Actually, Mr. Gasper, I have before me a document that is titled Motion to Revoke Unadjudicated Probation. This motion was filed by the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office. Now, Mr. Gasper, you have a right to have a record to be made of this proceeding, which means you have a right to have a court reporter to type down everything that's being said. You also have a right to waive or give up your right to have a record made. Do you waive or give up the right to have a record waived?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Gasper, I also have before me a document that is titled Motion to Revoke Unadjudicated Probation. This motion was filed by the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office. In this motion, it alleges that you, Jalen Paul Gasper, on June 22nd of 2023, in County Court at Law Number 2 of Jefferson County, Texas, that the court found that the evidence was sufficient beyond a reasonable doubt to support a finding of guilt for the offense of driving while intoxicated, which is a Class B misdemeanor. The court deferred adjudicating your guilt and placed you on unadjudicated probation for a period of 1 year. In this motion, there are 4 allegations. Straight. Are you abandoning allegation 1 and 4?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Gasper, the state is abandoning allegation 1 and 4. What that basically means is that they will be proceeding on allegations 2 and 3. Allegation number 2 alleges that you, Jalen Paul Gasper, failed to perform community service as required by the court in violation of condition 17 of the probation order. Is that true or not true?
True.
Okay. Allegation number 3 alleges that you, Jalen Paul Gasper, has failed to pay for, enroll, participate, and successfully complete the Jefferson County DWI education court class as ordered by the court in violation of condition A of your probation order. Is that true or not true? Now, are you pleading true to allegations 2 and 3 freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
And are you pleading true because they are true?
Yes.
Mr. Jaspers, I also have before me 2 documents. The first document is dated Jefferson County. Actually, it's titled Judge's Explanation of Rights to Defendants Without an Attorney. You recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
Is this your signature on the line entitled defendant?
Yes.
And are these your initials on the line that state you'd like to waive your right to attorney and represent yourself? I also have another document that is titled Waiver of Counsel for purposes of entering a guilty plea or proceeding to trial. You recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
And is this your signature on the line entitled defendant?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Mr. Gasper, before you signed and initialed these 2 documents that I just showed you, did you read the documents?
Yes, sir.
Did you understand what you read? Is everything in these documents true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Gasper, I also have before me a document that is titled Misdemeanor Plea Admonishments, also labeled as State's Exhibit number 1. Mr. Gasper, Do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
And on page 2 of the same document, there are a set of initials on the line next to a box. Uh-oh, he didn't put his initials on here. Okay, Mr. Gasper, I also have before me, on page 2 of this document, there are 2 sets of initials. First set of initials is on a line next to a box that's checked true to allegations 2 and 3. Did you place your initials on this document?
Yes, sir.
And at the bottom of this document, below a paragraph that is titled Discovery Admonishment, there's a set of initials on a line next to a box that's checked. I do not request discovery of the evidence. I waive my right to request discovery in this case and enter a plea of guilty of no contest. I'm gonna say enter a plea of true. Okay, put my initials. And Mr. Gasper, you're entering a plea of true, is that correct? Allegations 2 and 3?
Yes, sir.
And are these your initials on this line?
Yes, sir.
On page 3 of the same document, there's a signature above the line that is titled Defendant. Is this your signature?
Yes, sir.
And on the next document, that's titled Trial Court Certification for Defendant's Right of Appeal. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
And is this your signature on the line that's titled Defendant?
Yes, sir.
At the top of this document, there are 2 boxes checked. The first box is checked, states that this is a plea bargain case. You have no right of appeal. Do you understand that statement?
Yes, sir.
Second box is checked, states that you're waiving your right to appeal, which means you're giving up your right to appeal. Do you understand that statement? And Mr. Gasper, before you sign and initiate this document, did you read the document?
Yes, sir.
Did you understand what you read? Is everything in this document true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gasper, are you a citizen of the United States?
Yes, sir.
State?
State offers states 1.
Mr. Gasper, the state is offering State's Exhibit number 1 to be used as evidence in your case. State's Exhibit number 1 is the document, first document that I showed you on this tablet. It has the box checked MTRP, which means motion rule probation. It is the same document that have your initials in these 2 locations and your signature on page 3. Is it all right for the state to use this document as evidence in your case? No objection. State's Exhibit number 1 will be admitted. Mr. Gasper, is there any evidence that you are currently mentally incompetent to stand trial? Mr. Gasper, I will accept your plea of true to allegations 2 and 3. I will also find that you are mentally competent to stand trial. I would also find that your plea and waivers were freely and voluntarily given. And I will also find that there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. State, we have a plea bargain agreement?
Yes, we do, Your Honor.
And what is the agreement?
In exchange for defendant's plea of true, the state is offering 45 days in the Jefferson County Jail, credit for 45 days, and to tax and retire all court costs.
Okay. Mr. Gasper, the state is offering that you serve 45 days in the Jefferson County Jail. However, you will not have to serve any more time in the Jefferson County Jail on this case because you've already served 45 days in Jefferson County Jail. Therefore, you'll be given credit for the time that you've already served. The court costs in this case will be taxed and retired, which means that you would not be required to pay it because the time that you spent in jail has already paid it off. Therefore, to be taxed and retired. Mr. Gasper, do you understand the state's offer? You think that the state's offer in your case is fair and just? And do you accept the state's offer?
Yes.
Mr. Gasper, I'll follow the plea bargain agreement that you have entered into with the state. Now, Mr. Gasper, if you do not have anything else holding you in jail, you should be getting out of jail today.
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Gasper, did I have it right? Just,
Yes, sir, I did gonna say, I did contact your officer and told you for Monday
Monday.
at 10 a.m.
Oh, sir. Okay, thank you so much.
okay, just have a seat. Over there and wait for your name to be called. Once your name is called, you go to the window and then you'll follow the directions of the bill, you'll follow the bill, and you'll be free to go. And Mr. Gilliam, you're free to go.
Sir,
And you have a blessed day.
thank you.
This is really your honor.
Okay, you could bring the jury in. Everyone, please stand as the jury enters the room. You may, everyone may be seated. Let the record reflect that the court is back in session and calls number 323-227. Case is style of state of Texas versus Samuel Hayden Falk. Let the record reflect that Mr. Falk is present in court with his attorney, Attorney John Macy. Let the record also reflect that the state is present with Assistant District Attorneys, Attorney Kyle Gasper and Attorney Andrew Huber. Let the record reflect that the jury is now present and seated in the courtroom. And Mr. Macy, do you have a?
Yes, Judge. I would move for the court to instruct the jury to disregard what Officer Collins last said and to strike that from the record.
Okay,
His statement.
okay, and could we read back that statement? Yeah, okay, what was the question?
Question, Mr. Macy, as far as you know, or do you remember? Answer, yeah, from the last time we had this trial, so that's the last time I saw it.
Okay, the jury will be instructed to disregard the last statement that was made by Officer Collins. And the court will ask that be stricken from the record. Mr. Macy?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. May I approach?
Yes. Mr. Macy, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're continuing Officer Collins from yesterday, right? So to kind of refresh your memory, I was asking you about the last time, I was asking you about the blood. And so I believe what I was trying to say, or what I was trying to ask you, was my understanding is that given the kit to Travis Armstrong, who's a registered nurse.
Correct.
Is that what you testified to yesterday?
We don't give them like the whole kit, we usually hand them the files out of the
Okay.
kit.
But you have the kit, and so you get, there's inside the kit, there's vials.
Yep.
And vials are what DPS put together to have whenever there's a blood draw, the blood goes in those vials, correct?
Yes,
And then once the blood's taken, then the officer, in this case, you, were given the vials with the blood in them back. And then I think you testified that you got them and you put some type of special thing.
I can, yeah, you want me to explain to you?
Yes.
So,
Explain it to them.
so whenever, we get a blood draw, there are two vials, in a box just like that, it's called a blood kit. That we get from the, Department of Public Safety in Austin. There's two vials inside of it. There is a white powder that I guess I can describe it as like an anticoagulant kind of thing, so blood doesn't clump up whenever it, gets warm and stuff. So whenever you get the vial, you shake it upside down and then, just to mix the blood with the anticoagulant, mixture. And then there's two, seals that you can place over the top of them. The little, I've given blood before and seen the little rubber tube at the top. And there's a seal that goes over that and goes down the tube, and then you place it back inside of the screw container, that's got this like, I guess it's like a styrofoam little piece of paper, maybe, is how I could describe it. It just keeps it from banging around and stuff. And, then you put it back in the box. You do that with both of them.
Okay. And then you take, as I understand your testimony, you took that to, I guess, the station, is that right?
Yes, we have a, in our evidence.
Understand, so the answer was yes.
Yes,
Right.
back then.
And then you said you placed it in the evidence locker refrigerator.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
And then you didn't have anything else to do with it.
Correct.
And so when it needs to come to court,
Mhm.
because it's gotta go from one place to the other, are you the one that took it from the station and brought it to court?
Yep.
Okay, so when you do that, you identify it to make sure it's the same one that you did. And that you were the one that did it way back 4 years ago when you put it in there in the first place, right?
Yeah, I can explain the process.
Okay, go ahead.
So the process of, the evidence, removal from our evidence and then transport to court is, well, first off, whenever I put it in the blood refrigerator, because you keep the blood cold, whenever you get drawn, the refrigerator gets locked. It's got a padlock on it, key, and we drop the key in a, we call it the drug evidence bin. It's just a big metal bin that we cannot get inside of. Only the evidence officer can get inside of it. So then he goes and takes it and goes and logs it into our evidence or ships it off to where it needs to go, whether it be the Terrence County Crime
I'm
Lab.
sorry, I told you to go, but I want to stop.
Okay.
What you're describing is what you believe should happen, but you don't know because you're not the one that did it.
Correct, but I can tell
Okay.
you how I brought it.
No, I understand. So. I guess what I'm asking is, when it comes time to take it from wherever it was to court, you're the one that got it.
Yes, I check it out.
Check out, okay. And so you verify that was, you can look at something to tell, because you said you put the case number on there.
Correct.
You can tell that, and you can recognize your handwriting.
Correct.
And so you could tell that that's the blood that came from this case, right?
Yes.
And that's your signature, and that's the blood that you put in, even though it was 4 years ago.
Yep.
Okay, and then you brought it to court.
Sure did.
Okay. So, getting back to when we saw the video yesterday, when it's at the end of it, you asked Samuel if he wanted to voluntarily give you a sample or whether you needed to get a blood warrant. And he said, no, he didn't want to give you the sample voluntarily, so you said you were gonna go get the blood warrant.
Correct.
And then you started walking down the hall. Is almost the last thing that was on the video.
Mhm.
Right? And you said, that's a yes.
Correct.
So then you went to the police station because that's where, or was it the jail? Where was back then the blood warrant computer?
At the jail,
At the jail.
in the probable cause affidavit, correct.
Okay, and that's at the Jefferson County Correctional Facility?
Correct.
Okay, so you went in there and you filled out a document. And there's boxes where you can check. To say what reasoning is why you were asking for the blood. Is that right?
Yep.
And I want to show you this. It's just a copy of what I think is the first page, except for his name written on top of it. It's just, I just want to show this to you and ask you, is that the first, does that look familiar to you? If it's okay for me to approach,
Okay, you may approach.
does that look familiar to you?
Yeah, without all the writing that is on it, but yeah,
When you say not all the writing,
all this writing and stuff, I didn't.
oh, you didn't put that on there?
No.
Oh, no, you didn't, did you?
I mean,
That's, those are mine, it's not there. I'm sorry, but other than that, handwritten stuff. The document is what comes out of the computer, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so you put on there, your name and then you put the suspect's name and date of birth and driver's license number, right?
Yep.
And in this particular case, it looks like, oh, you have this document with you?
Yes.
The actual, blood warrant?
Yeah, I showed it to you yesterday.
Okay, so you can look at the one you brought. You wrote, under suspect, you wrote Samuel Paul.
Yep.
Correct, and then you put his date of birth and his driver's license number.
Yep.
And then you marked that he's white.
Yes.
Okay. And then you put, and then there's a section that says accusation, right?
Yep.
And then you put, it basically says the 11th day of May, 2019, the location, address, and the approximate time, right?
Correct.
And then you put, it has the vehicle description and the license plate number,
Yep.
right? And then it says, I was dispatched to a one vehicle versus house traffic accident.
Correct.
You wrote that.
I typed it, yeah.
That's what I meant. You typed it. And then it's got these little following observations and determinations were made about his or her condition, some of which are included below, right? It says that. Okay, and then some of these are marked and some of them aren't, correct? So the first one is odor of alcohol on breath, and that's not marked.
Correct.
Because you said you didn't smell alcohol, right?
Correct.
We saw that on the video.
Correct.
It says, well, the next one's glassy eyes, that's not marked.
Correct.
And because he didn't have glassy eyes, right?
Correct.
Otherwise, you'd mark it.
Correct.
And the next one is red or bloodshot eyes, and he didn't have that either, otherwise he'd have marked.
Correct.
But the first one that you did mark was slur of speech or slurring of speech.
Correct.
Okay. And he was talking on those videos. So so that's a fact question that the jury determines, right? You know, did he have slurred speech? I mean, you thought he did, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise you wouldn't have marked it. Now he told you that he had teeth problems, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember whether he told you if he bit his tongue when he
I
had the
don't
accident?
remember.
You don't recall? But he complained about his teeth hurting.
Yeah, two
He
things.
did that in the video, right?
Yes.
And you marked confused and disoriented is the next one you marked.
Yep.
And was that because he was having trouble with his shoe, putting his shoes on, or was it something else? Or what do you recall is the observation that caused you to do that?
I believe, if I remember correctly, it was a combination of the key touching the screen for no reason.
Right.
I don't think couldn't even tell the EMS people what year it was or what president, who the president was, or there was just different.
Okay,
stuff. I don't remember.
I object to non-response. Actually, I object to hearsay.
Stay. Hearsay, okay, stay.
Your Honor, this statement was previously redacted from the body cam. We have no objection to a hearsay argument.
Okay, your objection is sustained.
Right.
Okay, that'll be stricken from the record. We'll instruct the jury to disregard.
Officer Collins, I'm trying to be fair to you. I'm trying to get you to tell me what you know from what you observed. Okay. Okay. Not what you may or may not have heard from somebody else. Okay.
Understood.
Now, you said one of the things was the keys. Because you thought he was trying to turn off a car that was already off, correct?
Yeah.
And you don't really know that that's what he was trying to do. That's what you thought he was doing. Correct?
What it appeared to be.
Period B. But he could have been trying to take the key out of the ignition.
Okay.
Right? Possibly.
Possibly.
And you said he was touching the screen for no reason, right?
Correct.
You thought.
Correct.
Do you know whether or not that vehicle has a way to call somebody by touching their phone number on the screen?
I don't know.
You don't know.
No.
But you presume that he was just touching it for no reason, right? I mean, that's what you just said.
Yeah, he said
Okay.
something,
It's fair.
he had to go to vehicle.
Now, he was just in, and then I kind of interjected, and I don't know whether you thought this was something that was confusing or disoriented. I guessed that you were also talking about the fact that he was having difficulty putting on his shoe. But maybe you didn't think that. Maybe that's didn't, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm not just asking you. I'm trying to figure out what you meant, if you recall. Do you recall? Whether that was one of the reasons why you put Mark confused and disoriented?
No, I don't remember.
Okay,
Excuse me.
but he had just been in an accident where he hit a tree, right?
Correct.
And the airbags didn't deploy.
They did not.
Was he wearing a seatbelt? Or do you remember?
I remember.
So you don't know whether he had whiplash, do you? You don't know whether he hit his head on the steering wheel, do you? Okay. The next one you marked was unable to adequately follow directions. Was that about the shoe?
Probably so.
Okay, could you recall anything else at the time that caused you to mark that on the,
I can't remember exactly.
okay,
Long time ago.
understand. It was in May of 2019.
Correct.
And you thought he was, you marked, the next one you marked was belligerent.
Correct.
Okay, where did you consider what he was doing belligerent?
I believe I said that he was up and down in his emotions and feelings, but other than that, I can't recall,
Okay,
right now.
fair enough. Because actually, the next one you marked. Well, actually, let me. You said, you're saying, right? I don't know when you said whatever it is you said, but we're talking right now. I'm asking you questions
Yeah.
about this,
Yeah,
right? You
right.
understand that?
Yeah, we're
I don't
talking
know.
right now.
The next ones that you marked is overly excited.
Correct.
Do you recall when you observed that?
Like I just said, his emotions were up and down, usually goes in with belligerent, overly excited.
Okay, you kind of lump those together
Yeah, usually.
in your mind. Okay. The next one isn't marked, that's threat of violence. Right, and so he didn't do that, otherwise you'd have marked it. Is that right?
Correct.
And the next one is refused field sobriety tests, and that's not marked, right?
Yes, it was not.
Because he didn't refuse any field sobriety tests, but the only one that you gave him was the horizontal gaze nystagmus test, right?
Correct.
And you asked him to do that, and he did it.
Correct.
The next one you didn't mark, and that says difficulty with balance. And you didn't mark that because you didn't observe that, right? Otherwise, you'd have marked it.
Yeah, I didn't get to observe it because he was assisted out of the vehicle onto the stretcher, so I never saw him walk around at that point.
Okay, understand. Well, to be fair, you did this after you left the hospital, correct? After he refused to do the blood, give you voluntarily, give you a blood sample.
Yeah.
Okay. So you'd already seen him at the scene and also at the hospital
Correct,
at the time you filled this out, right?
correct.
The next one is difficulty performing leg stand. That's a standard field sobriety test, and you already testified that you didn't do that because of safety reasons in your mind,
Correct.
correct? And the same with the next one you didn't mark, which is another field sobriety test, difficulty performing walk and turn. That's a standard field sobriety test.
Correct.
And you didn't do that either because of the same reason you didn't do the walking, the one leg stand.
Correct.
Difficulty with alphabet, you didn't mark, but that's not a standard field sobriety test, right?
Wait, no.
But it didn't matter because you didn't ask him about, to do the alphabet anyway, right? The next one you marked was the horizontal gaze nystagmus. Because you did a horizontal gaze nystagmus.
Yep.
Now the form says HGN indicated intoxication, right?
Correct.
So whoever designed this form put HGN indicated intoxication. You didn't write that. The form says that, and you did an HDN, you marked that.
Correct.
So whoever designed this form believes that a horizontal gaze nystagmus, if there's nystagmus, that means there's intoxication. We talked about that yesterday, right? And that's when I asked you if you knew whether other things other than alcohol or intoxication could cause nystagmus. Remember I asked you that?
Yeah.
And you weren't sure, I don't want to put
Yeah.
words in your mouth. You didn't know. You just know that you're taught at the academy that alcohol can cause nystagmus.
Yep.
Okay. The next one isn't marked, open container of alcohol in vehicle, because you didn't find that, right? And the next one isn't marked, and it says used vehicle or object for support. You didn't mark that because you didn't observe that, right? And the next one isn't marked. It says odor of marijuana in vehicle because you didn't smell anything that smelled like. Are you trained on what marijuana smells like?
Yeah.
And you didn't smell it?
Correct.
Okay. And the next one that's not marked is odor of marijuana on suspect. You didn't mark that because you didn't smell any of that, right?
Correct.
Otherwise you'd have marked it.
Yep.
The next one you didn't mark, marijuana spotted in the vehicle. You didn't mark that because you didn't find any marijuana in the vehicle, correct?
Correct.
The next one's not marked. It's marijuana in suspect's possession. You didn't mark that because you didn't find any marijuana on your.
No marijuana at all.
And I'm sorry if this seems tedious to you. I'm just going down the list that's on this form. The next one is admitted recently smoking of marijuana. You didn't mark that because you didn't, I don't know if you even asked him about that, but if you did, he said he didn't admit it, right? Now, you didn't mark apparent drugs spotted in vehicle.
Yeah.
But on the video, you found 2 bottles. So to be fair, did you just miss that or did you not consider those? I don't know,
Yeah,
the drugs?
At that point in my career, I was, fairly new. To me, whenever I saw, at that point in my life or my career, whenever I saw drugs, I was thinking methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, not prescription medication. If it's a prescription medication, by all means, yeah.
Right. So even though at the very beginning, when you first made contact with Samuel, you asked him, have you been drinking alcohol? And he said no. And then he said, have you been taking drugs? And he said no. You asked him then, the third question was, have you been taking prescription medication? And he said no, right?
Correct.
So you did ask him about it, but you, in your mind, that wasn't something necessary to put on this form, apparently, right?
Well, I did.
Well, you didn't put it. You didn't mark apparent drugs in suspect's possession. Okay. You didn't find him on his person any drugs, correct?
Correct.
You found a couple of an empty bottle and a bottle with 5 pills in the car.
Correct.
Now, the car wasn't Samuel's, was it?
Did not belong there. Or was not registered.
Understand? Okay. He was driving.
Yep.
And do you recall who the car's registered owner is?
I think it was his mom.
His mom.
Yeah, I think,
Do you know her name?
Deborah.
Deborah Falk.
Deborah Paul.
And one of the prescription bottles was made out to a Deborah Falk, right?
Correct.
And the next one that's not marked is admitted recent taking of substance. And you didn't mark that either.
Correct.
But what you did mark was the next kind of catch-all, if you want to call it that. It says other, right? And what did you put?
Pills collected from vehicle.
Right, and that's the pills that you found in the one bottle that had something in it, correct?
Yeah.
That you looked at something and came to the conclusion that you thought it was Adderall.
Correct.
But, so that's the only thing that's marked on here, right? Correct, on your affidavit for search warrant.
Yeah, the ones that you said I marked, those are the only ones.
What's on the second page?
Demeanor and admissions, it's a place for you to write any comments or statements that, the subject.
Did you write anything on there?
I did.
What did you write?
Would you like me to read it word for word?
Yeah.
Okay. Falk admitted to drinking alcohol prior to the traffic crash.
Okay. And that was based on conversation you had with him at the scene, right?
Definitely.
That was the one we talked about yesterday where he said something to the effect that he had drank 4.5 hours earlier.
Yeah, that's the.
About 4 drinks or 2 drinks, well, however many drinks. That's what you were referring to when you wrote that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did you write anything else?
Nope. I mean, there's witness information underneath it, but.
Okay, fair enough. And so you type all that stuff on that computer you were talking about, and then you hit send, and it goes to whatever judge is on call or duty or whatever, as far as you know.
Essentially.
And then at some point, you got it back with a judge's apparent signature, right?
Yep.
Saying, I'm authorizing you to go and collect the blood.
Yes.
Which is the reason why you filled that out in the first place, right?
Yes.
And then we already talked about, you went back to the hospital and you did it. You did whatever was required to end up with the blood, maybe sitting here in court, right?
Yes, sir.
That's witness, yeah.
Ms. Gasper, the witness is yours.
Thank you, Your Honor. Some follow-up questions for you. Now, when you filled out this warrant, the warrant that defense counsel just walked you through.
Yep.
Was this after your interactions with the defendant at the hospital?
Yes,
You had made all of your observations by the time you filled out this.
yes.
For a warrant like this to be issued, are you required to check all the boxes of intoxication?
What do you mean by that?
For the judge to sign off on a warrant, do you have to check every single box or just your observations?
Oh, just your observations.
And would you say that someone could be intoxicated without checking every single box?
Yeah.
Now, defense counsel mentioned yesterday on your cross-examination about something in the video mentioning the blood kit and that this was the good one. Do you remember talking about that yesterday?
Yeah,
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
Now, is there a date on this to know that this is the good one?
Yeah.
Do you know how to identify that?
yeah.
Would you identify this as the proper blood kit?
It's underneath the crime lab thing. I can kind of see it though.
Okay. And that would tell you that this was the proper blood kit to use.
Yeah, it says expiration date, July 31st, 2019.
So this was after the offense occurred?
Yeah.
So it was good at the time?
Yeah, not far.
And while I'm still up here, you do have an identification number on this to identify this as the blood kit from this offense?
Yep.
Now, defense counsel went in a little bit into your HGN test. Just to clarify, you only administered the HGN and not the other SFSTs because the other SFSTs couldn't be performed while the defendant was in a hospital bed, correct?
Correct.
And would you have done the other test if you were able to do the other test?
If I was able to safely, have him perform them, then yeah.
And were the clues you observed in the HGN or horizontal gaze and stigmas test, were those clues the only reasoning that you had to believe that the defendant was?
Correct.
There was other things that you observed throughout your investigation?
Yep.
How it works, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Mason?
I don't have any further questions.
Okay, may this witness be excused?
Yes.
Defense?
I'm. I don't know of any redirect that I'd need at this moment, Judge, but that doesn't mean that I.
Yeah, I mean, if you need to recall him, the state has his number.
Okay.
Is that correct, state?
Yes, we do have this conference.
Okay. So, Officer Collins, you may step down and make, just a reminder, you are under the rule.
Okay.
All right.
Please excuse it.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right, and you have a blessed day.
Yes, sir, you too.
Thank you. Ms. Gasper, Ms. Gasper, you can call your next witness.
Your Honor, at this time, the state calls Sergeant Timothy Smith to the stand.
Timothy Smith, okay? Smith, Sergeant Smith, would you please raise your right hand? You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Sergeant Smith, you may put your hand on, take the stand. Attorney Gasper, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Would you please state your name for the record?
I'm Sergeant Tim Smith.
And how are you employed?
I'm a police officer for the city of Nederland. Police Department.
You're a certified peace officer?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been a certified peace
Uh,
officer?
almost 10 years.
And how long have you been with the Nederland Police Department?
Almost 8 years.
What is your role with them?
I'm a sergeant, I'm a patrol supervisor.
Did you have any other prior law enforcement experience?
Before I came to Nederland,
Yes.
yeah, I worked at the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office.
You recall the evening of May 11th, 2019?
Yes, ma'am.
On that date, about 11:45 PM, were you on duty?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you dispatched to a residence in reference to an accident?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that residence in Nederland, Texas?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that in Jefferson County, Texas?
Yes, ma'am.
When you arrived at the scene, were you the only officer there?
I was not.
Who else was there?
Officer Peyton Collins.
And were you performing supervising duties on scene that night?
I was.
Can you explain the scene of the crash as you saw it when you arrived?
It appeared the vehicle was traveling eastbound on Avenue H. And the vehicle left the roadway, crashed through a privacy fence and struck a tree.
Did you observe a sole occupant behind the wheel?
I did.
And is that individual in the room today?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you identify that individual with an article of clothing?
Yes, ma'am. He's over there in the greenish brown polo shirt.
Let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect that witnesses identified the defendant.
Now, when you're at the scene of the crash, did you speak to anyone there?
I spoke with a witness, the homeowner.
And was he cooperative in speaking with you?
Was.
While on scene, did you have concerns that this might have been a medical emergency?
I did.
Did you also have concerns that this was a potential driving while intoxicated case?
I did.
How many DWI investigations have you completed in your career?
A lot.
Through your training and experience, did you feel that this specific incident was a DWI investigation?
I did have suspicions of it.
Can you explain to the jury why you might have thought that?
Due to the type of crash it was, due to some statements that were made, and just due to the subject's demeanor.
Was the defendant eventually transported to the hospital?
He was.
Was he transported by EMS?
He was.
Did you go to the hospital?
I did later, yes.
Do you know if the defendant voluntarily agreed to give a sample of his blood at the hospital?
He refused.
So what happened after you refused?
After he refused, we standard protocol, we read him a DIC 24. He refused to provide a specimen of his blood, and we applied for a search warrant, which was granted, and then we took his blood.
And did Officer Collins go to apply for the search warrant?
Yes, he did.
At that time, did you stay at the hospital with the defendant?
I did.
And did Officer Collins return to the hospital with the blood warrant?
Yes,
Were you, at that time, was blood taken from the defendant?
yes.
Do you know who collected the sample from the defendant?
It was Nurse Armstrong.
Did they give you the blood?
Not directly, no.
Did they give it to Officer Collins?
Yes,
And were you still there when the blood was handed to Officer Collins?
I was.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes, you may.
Do you recognize what's previously been marked as Exhibit 4?
Yes,
Can you identify what this is to the jury?
that is a DPS blood kit.
And are these standard for these types of cases? Your knowledge, excuse me, I'm gonna approach you again. May I approach your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Sorry. To your knowledge, has this been tampered with in any manner?
No,
Can you identify your case number on here?
it is 19-00680, N as in Nora.
And that's the case number that is associated with Mr. Samuel Falk's case?
Correct.
I pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Macy?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Sergeant Smith.
How's it going?
Everything's fine. My name's John Macy, to refresh your memory if you. Anyway, you know that I represent Samuel Falk.
Yes, sir.
You were one of the two officers that were dispatched to the scene of the accident, correct?
Correct.
And you're the one that did the crash report, right?
Yes, sir.
So, did you bring a copy of that with you by
I do have
chance?
one.
No, I'm sorry, but,
Yes, I do.
okay, could you look at it? And let me know when you're ready. When you're looking at it. Okay. So the first thing you put on there is the date of the crash, or it actually says crash date, right?
Yes, sir.
And you're the one that put in all this information.
Yes, sir.
And so you put 05/11/2019. And you put crash time 2344, right?
Yes, sir.
And then you put case ID 19-00680N.
680, yes.
Is that the same number that's on that
Yes, sir.
blood kit? Okay. And then you put the county, right? In the city. And you put, in this case, Jefferson County in the city, Nederland. And then you put, it asks some questions like what the speed limit is in the area, right? And then it asks whether it was a construction zone, right? And it asks whether there was any workers present, and all that you marked, well, construction zone, no. Workers present, no, because it wasn't a construction zone, and the speed limit, you put 30, right? And then you, it's, the next section looks like if the next section deals with the vehicle, correct?
Yes.
Like the VIN number and the license plate number and the make and model of the,
Yes.
and things of that nature. And it has a driver's license number. Whose driver's license is that?
It should be Mr. Falls.
Okay. And then, so that date of birth that's on there, that should be Mr. Fox as well?
Correct.
Okay. Not talking about the owner of the vehicle, even though that section's talking about the vehicle with the VIN number and the license plate and all of that. When you put the date of birth, you're talking about the driver. Right.
That is the driver information.
And then it has a street address, and what is that? Is that Mr. Fox's address or something else? Or do you know?
Are you referring to the South 11th?
I'm referring to the, yes,
Okay, yeah, that would be yes,
the address that was on the driver's license.
correct.
Okay, gotcha. And then the next section, if at least the next part actually has Falk, comma, Samuel Hayden, right?
Correct.
And then it has some numbers associated with things like age, ethnicity, sex, et cetera. Just kind of answers to some basic information. And had it been raining,
I believe the roadway was wet.
okay, and that's listed on here somewhere, right?
It should be here. Yes, sir.
Ah, okay, that's on the second page, right? Where it talks about number, I guess that would be number 38. Weather condition, is that right?
Correct.
And one signifies what, wet road or? Because I don't see a legend on this thing.
There's not plans. Number one shows clear.
Oh, number one is
So
clear,
I did mark it as clear that,
okay.
I guess it was just nighttime.
But your recollection was that the road was wet.
Correct.
And then there's a narrative that you wrote, right?
Correct.
And then there's a diagram.
Correct.
That you make, is that a computer generated kind of a thing?
It looks a lot better on the computer.
Understand, but, and then it's printed out, so it shows an intersection. It could be any intersection, but in this particular case, it's meant to be the intersection that was the closest one to the accident, correct?
Correct.
And then, it says unit 1. And then it says unit 1. And then it says unit 1, right?
Yes. And there's.
So if I understand the way you observed, based on the way you put this, it looks like the car was going this way on the road. And then at some point, it went that way. Is that right?
Correct.
It went to the right.
Correct.
Correct. And then it ended up, it looks like on your diagram, that it ended up in a tree like that
When it hit.
when it hit.
Yes.
It went
It went
like
through a fence and then hit a tree.
through a fence. So do you recall any tire marks on the grass?
Yes.
I take it that was a yard, right?
Correct.
And so do you recall the tire marks on the grass?
Yes, sir.
Were they straight?
I believe they were.
And then when it hit the tree, it went like that. Is that the car, right?
The tree was in the backyard of the
I
residence.
understand.
Okay.
So it went through the yard and the fence was where, in the yard, if you recall.
Well, it's the backyard of the residence, but it would be the north side of the house. Towards Avenue H.
So, okay, so when your diagram shows that, because I asked you, I said, it looks like he's going this way and then all of a sudden he's going that way.
Right.
When he's going this way, is that when he hit the fence?
If he left the roadway, went through the yard, which was pretty heading in a straight direction, went through the fence and then hit the tree in the backyard.
Okay,
And when he
So-
hit the tree, it looked like the vehicle pivoted from the impact.
understand. So I guess my clumsy question was, it was the fence to your recollection on the perimeter of the yard.
Yes, but what I'm referring to is him driving in front of would be, I guess you would call the front yard of the residence.
Understand.
Okay.
Um. So obviously you didn't see it happen, you just saw the remnants of it after the fact.
Correct.
And then that's why, and so you do a crash report to kind of recreate what you observed. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's what it's doing.
Ms. Casper?
How many crash reports would you say you've written in your time?
Oh, I couldn't give you a number.
And is it a lot of the time that you're writing these reports after the accident happened?
Almost always.
So you can observe what happens to the accident and be able to generate a crash report from what you saw after the incident happened.
Correct.
I pass the witness.
Mr. Mason?
Oh, I'm sorry, just briefly. There's a section that says damaged property other than vehicles, right? And you wrote wooden fence and tape.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Um. And you didn't mark tree, is it because there's only two spaces?
Well, we didn't, I mean, the tree was, he's not gonna replace the tree, you know, I wouldn't normally mark it as damaged property because it didn't, I knocked the tree over or anything.
Right, okay. Um. You recall what part of the car hit the table?
I believe. Can I refer to
Either,
you?
sure, I mean, if you recall.
With its right quarter end is where it hit the table. There just happened to be a table in the backyard and
Okay.
it pushed the table up against the house.
Okay, so it was forceful enough
Yes.
to
Yeah,
push the table toward that,
I'm not exactly sure where
as
the
far as you could
table,
tell.
I wasn't exactly sure where the table was before it happened, but yes, it was between the car and the house.
Okay. Thank you, officer, Sergeant Smith.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Casper, you have any more questions?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Mason,
Nothing further, Judge.
may this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Sergeant Smith, you're excused. Just a reminder, you are under the rule. You can follow the bailiff, and if any one of them, well, if they need you again, you'll probably get a call from the district attorney's office. But you're free to go and you have a blessed day.
Thank you, Judge.
You are. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, jury, at this time, I'm gonna take a 10-minute break. We're gonna ask everyone to stand as the jury exit the courtroom. If you need any coffee or water, just let us know. Let the bailiff know and he'll bring you some. We'll be in recess. Everyone, please stand as the jury enters. Y'all may be seated. Let the record reflect the court is back in session. Cause number 323-227. Case style of state of Texas versus Samuel Hayden Falk. Let the record reflect that Mr. Falk is present in court with his attorney, Attorney John Macy. Let the record reflect that the state is present with Assistant District Attorneys, Attorney Kyle Gasper and Attorney Andrew Hughes. Let the record also reflect that the jury is now present and seated in the courtroom. State, are you ready?
State's right, Your Honor.
Defense, are you ready? Okay. State, you may proceed. Call your next witness.
State calls Travis Armstrong. Should be in the.
Travis Armstrong. Mr. Armstrong, would you please come forward? Yeah, come here and you can raise your right hand.
Okay.
Mr. Armstrong, do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Mr. Armstrong, you may put your hand out. You could take a seat in the jury box, the witness stand. Mr. Hubel, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Mr. Armstrong. Could you state your name for the record?
Travis Armstrong.
And how are you employed?
How am I employed?
Yes.
I'm at the Medical Center of Southeast Texas
Okay.
in Florida.
And what is your occupation?
I'm an RN.
And how long have you been an RN?
Since 2015. Believe.
Okay, and for the record, and what is an RN?
Registered nurse.
And what are your usual duties as a registered nurse? If you could summarize them.
Well, I work in an emergency department, so I take care of patients ranging from small cuts of bruises, sniffles, and sneezes to trauma, heart attacks, stuff like that,
And,
including blood draws and stuff.
and can you give me a background on your education experience?
I've got a bachelor's of science in nursing and a bachelor's of business administration and marketing as well.
Does in order to be a registered nurse, do you have to have some sort of license or certification?
Yes,
And do you currently maintain that certification?
yes, sir.
Okay. Can you explain to me what the requirement is?
Completing education in school, passing a state board,
Okay.
and then follow-ups or just maintaining CEs.
Were you certified as a registered nurse in 2019?
Yes.
In May of 2019?
Yes.
Okay. And did you were you still with Southeast Texas Medical Center in May of 2019?
Yes,
And on May 11th of 2019, do you recall being asked to take a blood sample from a single ball?
say that again, I'm sorry.
On May 11th of 2019, do you recall taking the blood sample of someone by the name of Samuel Ball?
was a long time ago.
Yeah, I understand. It was 5 years ago. No, at that time, did you complete, do you recall completing a statement for law enforcement?
Uh, yes, sir, I would do.
Okay. And do you think that statement would help to refresh your memory if you were to review it?
Yes,
May I approach?
Yes, you may.
What I'm showing you, is this your statement from, May 12th of 2019?
it is, yes, sir.
Okay. Would you take a moment to review it?
Sure.
Has,
Yes, sir.
has reviewing that statement refreshed your memory?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, on May 11th of 2019, do you recall being asked to take the blood sample of an individual by the name of Samuel Paul?
Yes, sir.
And what is your usual procedure for taking such a sample?
I would verify allergies. Find the site. Clean. Stick the patient, withdraw blood into a syringe. And then, put said blood into provided tube.
Okay. And this is done in the sanitary place?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall the time that you took the sample in, that you took Mr. Falk's sample in this case?
Yes.
And when was that?
At, the 19.
Okay, and on, do you recall on what date that was?
May 12th.
May I approach?
Yes, you may.
Your Honor, I asked that you instruct the witness to testify from his recollection, not to read the document and testify from that.
Okay. Ms. Armstrong, if, when you testify from your own memory. If you cannot, then the state can ask you to refresh your memory from the document. Okay,
Sure. Yes.
all right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach?
Yes, you may.
I am showing you what's been previously marked as states number 4. Do you recognize what it is?
Yes, sir.
And what is it?
It's the box that the vials typically come in empty vials.
Okay, and you see these a lot in your line of work.
Yes, sir.
I'm now going to show you the contents of states exhibit number 4. And do you recognize what these are?
Yes, sir.
Can you state what they are for the record?
Those are the containers that hold the vials.
Okay. Now, I'm going to show you what's contained within those.
Sorry, Your Honor, I can't see what he's doing. Do you mind if I approach?
Yeah, you can approach.
Sorry about the position.
That's okay.
Just making sure the jury sees.
No, that's fine. I just,
So, I'm removing the condom one of the tubes that is within status 4. Can you tell me what this is that I'm showing you?
That's one of the tubes that is provided for the blood draw.
Okay, and do you recognize?
Yes.
Okay, and can you tell me how you recognize it?
Because I do a lot of blood draws and they all use the same tube.
Okay, and is your name printed on this vial?
Yes,
Okay. Uh, and this vial, does it appear to have been tampered with in any way?
no, sir.
Okay. And for the record, this is, the contents of State's Exhibit number 4. It's a, it was a blood vial marked A. And now I'm going to ask you the same questions for, the second blood vial, within the contents of statements, that is marked with letter B. Now, do you recognize this blood tube?
Yes,
And, how do you recognize it?
it's got my name on
Okay. And does it appear to have been tampered with in any way?
it. No, sir.
Now, do you, after the extraction of the blood in this case, do you recall, who you gave this kit to? Or rather, who you gave the blood vials to? I'm gonna rephrase.
From my memory,
Would you, would reviewing the statement that you made refresh your memory?
yes,
Please do so.
that was Officer Holmes.
No, okay. And you testified that from memory, just not, from your refreshed memory after reviewing the, document?
Yes,
And following you giving, these vials to Officer Collins, did that conclude your, involvement with this case?
yes.
No further questions, state passes the.
Okay. Ms. Mason?
Mr. Armstrong, my name is John Mason. I'm an attorney. I represent Samuel Falk in this case, okay? And I have just a few questions for you. The statement that you used to refresh your memory is that statement in front of you, right?
Yes,
And so I know that it was a long time ago, relatively speaking. It was apparently May of 2019. And this form you filled out just says something to the effect that you withdrew the blood specimen from Samuel Falk at a certain time, right?
yes,
Did you fill out that information on that form?
yes,
And then you signed it, and then you wrote your name in, you signed it in cursive and then you wrote your name so that you could actually read what name you wrote, right? And it says, I gave blood vial to Officer Collins, right?
yes.
Do you remember doing that, or you just are saying that you just presume that's what you did because that's what it says on that document?
I don't specifically remember.
Okay. So you're a registered nurse and you worked on May the 12th, 2019.
Yes.
at where?
Medical Center of Southeast Texas.
Medical Center, Southeast Texas. Okay, Madam Approach, I'm sorry,
Bless
Judge,
you, ma'am.
again, what is the date that it says you took that, blood? It says May the 12th, 2012, doesn't it?
No.
It doesn't say that?
On the 12th day of May,
Twenty
yeah,
twelve,
2012,
right?
it does say.
And you don't really have any recollection of when you took the actual blood. You just went based on that document to refresh your memory. Right?
Correct.
But Mr. Hubel told you it was 2019, right?
It was.
But you don't really have any memory of that today, right?
Not necessarily. I wasn't a nurse in 2012 though.
Okay. So when, from a procedural standpoint, when an officer asks you to do a blood draw based on a warrant, how's that work? I mean, in other words, let me, instead of asking you that question, let me ask you a series of questions and see if I'm wrong. Officer brings you a warrant that purports to be from a judge authorizing you to take somebody's blood, whether they want to voluntarily give it or not, correct?
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay, so do they show you that warrant?
Yes, sir.
You make a copy of that warrant?
No,
Okay, so you just go based on the representation of the police officer that he got a warrant, or do you actually look at the?
I look at it.
Okay, so you look at it and if it appears to be signed by a judge, then you presume, since an officer's given it to you, that it was done properly. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then he, as I think you testified to, because you were shown a kit a second ago that I went up there and looked at with closer. You said that that was the kit, near as you could tell, that was given to you that day that you used to draw, that you put the blood in. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, he opened it up in front of you and pulled out one of these, and then he pulled out the other one. And then he opened them up and he pulled them out and showed them to you, and you looked at them and he asked you whether or not they appeared to be tampered with, and you said no. Right? First off, what color cap are those vials? Do you know what color cap those vials have on them?
I believe they're gray.
Gray. What's the significance of a gray top compared to a yellow top or a blue top?
mean, they would. I don't know the answer to that one. I mean, I know in my lab, in my hospital, the difference,
Okay,
but.
fair enough.
those
Are they not universal?
We don't have long gray tops in my lab.
And that's a long gray top?
Correct.
Okay. So. In your hospital, you still work yourself, East Texas Medical Center? I think you said that in your lab, you don't have those long gray tops. What do you have there?
We don't that I know of, but,
Well, I understand.
we have a short gray top that we use.
Oh, okay. You have a short gray top. Do you have any other colored top vials?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the short gray top is one of the ones y'all have, and another one y'all have is a different colored top?
Yes,
What color?
we have blue,
Blue, okay,
gold top.
okay. What's the difference between the ones that y'all have, the blue and the gray? Do you know?
I know we use gray tops to see if lactic acid is elevated. A blue top we use for, I believe it's, looking to see if a D dimer is elevated.
Okay, so as I understand, well, let me say something, you can tell me if I'm off base or whatever. Certain vials are used to test for certain things in blood,
Yes,
because the vials are used for blood, right?
yes,
So when I go to the doctor and they order a blood test and the phlebotomist, I guess they are, sticks that thing in my arm and then they get a tube and stick it in there and collect blood, and then they pull it out and then they put some kind of top on there. Does the color signify what's gonna be tested? Or do you know?
not necessarily,
Okay.
because certain colors can do many different tests.
If you recall, because, well, let me ask you this, how many times have you been asked by a police agency to draw blood with a warrant in your career, approximately?
I couldn't say.
More than 5 times?
Yes,
More than 100 times?
probably not.
Okay. But you're familiar enough with them to look at them and tell what it is, right?
Yes,
So when you get those vials, are they empty or do they have something in them?
they have a white powder.
A white powder. And you're specifically referring to the long gray top that the police use, right?
Correct.
And do you know what that powder is?
Probably, no, I'd
Okay.
just be speculating.
Okay, fair enough. So, but do you recall whether there was any powder in the tubes that they gave you for Samuel Fall, in 2019 or 2012 or whenever it was?
I could say.
Okay. So I was referring to kind of my experience when I go and they take blood from me. Is that the way you did it with Samuel? Or do you, because the way you described it a minute ago was that you took blood from Samuel and then you put it in the vial. That's what it sounded like you said. Did you not do it that way?
That's
Or
what I
did you
said.
use one of those things like the phlebotomist uses that just stick it in there and then you stick the tube in there and it fills up and then you pull it out and grab the next one?
Yeah, no, I just use syringes.
Oh, sorry, what?
Syringes.
Okay, so you use syringes, okay. And then you transfer it from the syringe into that vial?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think you said you test for, you tested for, or you did something having to do with allergies, right? Did you say that? You said the first thing that you do is check for allergies?
Oh, yeah, just to make sure he's not allergic to anything that I'm cleaning with.
Okay, so what you're checking for is he allergic to what you're using to clean the site?
Yes.
What did you use to clean the site?
Iodine.
Iodine?
Yes.
Um. You know that the Texas Department of Public Safety is the one that puts those kits together? Did you know that? Okay. Did you know that there's an instruction form for collection and submission of blood specimens for alcohol and or drug determination that they have, that was developed by the Texas Department of Public Safety crime lab? Did you know that?
It's a,
I'm sorry.
what do you say? A procedure? Is
A
that what you're
procedure.
saying? Yeah. I don't.
Okay, so if it says cleanse blood withdrawal site only with a non-alcoholic prep pad. Well, you didn't use their non-alcoholic prep pad, you used iodine, right?
Correct, I use that.
Okay. And then it says with hospital/clinic procedures, collect a full tubes of blood specimen from the subject in each provided blood tube or other gray top 10 millimeter vacutainer. Okay. What is a hospital/clinic procedure?
Just how to draw blood.
Okay, so y'all's procedure is you use a needle. I'm just trying to understand how y'all do it. You use the needle and you stick it in there and you draw blood, and then you transfer it from that syringe into the tube, correct?
Yes.
And how much blood do you collect?
I collect 20.
You collect 20
And
at a time?
so
Total. Okay, so you collect, when you say 20, what do you, 20 what?
milliliters.
Okay, so you got two. So you put 10 in each?
Typically takes around 8.
8. Okay. Do you know how many milliliters that each one of those long top or whatever, is that what you call it? Long top gray or long what did you call it? I'm sorry, I don't. my memory-
Long gray top.
Long gray top, okay. Do you know how many milliliters each long gray top vial can hold?
It typically takes around 8 or 9.
8 or 9? Okay. And then it's overflowing?
No, it stops.
What do you mean stops?
It stops. It's a vacuum container, so it takes the blood from the syringe,
Ah, okay.
and then when it's done, no more goes in.
So it is a sealed container. You draw the blood and then you stick the needle in there. And because it's under vacuum pressure, it pulls the blood out of the vial, out of your syringe. You don't push it in there.
Correct.
And it goes until it stops, and you can tell when it stops.
Yes.
And then when it stops, you pull it out. So do you take the blood twice? 10 at a time, or do you take 20 and stick it in one until it stops and then stick it in the other until it stops?
I typically use 210s syringes.
Okay. So you stick them twice.
No,
How does that work?
I use what they call a butterfly needle that has a little tube connected to it.
Okay, I got you. So it's like
So I
a,
just disconnect the syringe from the tube, pop another one on.
I see. So it's not two needles. It's not two syringes with needles. It's one needle with a lead coming off of it that you can plug a syringe in that doesn't have a needle. And then it'll draw the blood, and then you can unscrew that.
Yes.
And then you can stick a needle on it to stick it in the vacuum tank.
Yes.
Yes. So then once you do that, and you have the blood in the vials, what do you do?
Kind of move them back and forth
Okay.
to mix in the
Um,
white substance.
you move them, well, first off, do you have to put the gray top on it, or is it attached to it?
It's attached to it. I don't pull the gray top off.
Okay, so you don't unscrew it and put it in there and screw it back. You just, it has like a membrane that you stick the needle through.
Yes.
I got you. Okay, so then, so now the blood's in the, and I'm sorry if this is tedious to you, you stick the needle into the vacuum, through the membrane, and it starts sucking the blood out of the needle until it's finished.
Yeah.
And then when it's finished, you pull it off, and then you said you shake it or do whatever. How do you do that?
I just gently move it back and forth. So,
Okay, how many times? Is there a set amount, or is this,
I'm not sure if there's a set amount, but I probably do it 10 or so times.
okay. Is there a certain manner you're taught to do it, mix it in a certain way, or you just,
I mean, I do it slowly.
okay, slowly? So what does that mean? I don't know what slow. Slowly is a kind of ambiguous term, but slowly to me might be not slowly to you.
Right,
And so a second ago you were going like that. Is
Yeah.
that slow to you?
Yes, that's slow to me.
So are you, when you're mixing it, are you doing it completely from one side to another, or?
Yes.
So once you've done that, done the mix, the slow mix, that you, as you described it, then what do you do?
Then we put the labels that were on it.
The labels that you saw a second ago.
Yes.
Madam President?
Yes. Back.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know you saw this already.
Sure.
So. Are you talking about that label?
Those white labels.
The white label?
Stretches.
And it stretches this side to this side.
Yes.
And got your name on it. Do you write your name on it, or how does that work?
Okay, so yeah, sometimes, but in this case, I would say no.
You don't think you wrote your name on there?
No.
Okay. And I want to look at the other one just briefly with you. You said you didn't think it was tampered with, but that seal's broken, right?
I don't know.
Okay. That blood appears to be all the way to the top. Doesn't it?
No.
No? Where does it stop?
It's somewhere around here.
Oh, is it way down there?
Yes. Looks like it.
Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. So on this one. I think you said blood's about right there in the middle of the two. Is that about right?
Yeah, maybe a little above.
Right. Well, when you stick the needle in and it sucks the blood into it, is that where it stops? Usually, from your recollection, or does it put more than that in there?
Yeah, I don't.
Or do you know?
I don't.
You don't pay
I don't
attention.
pay
You
that
just,
much attention. I
you just wait until it stops.
Yeah, I would.
Gotcha. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can just look at that and see, can't we? This one, can you even tell? It's harder to see, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because there's a label goes all the way up to the top.
Yes.
So if it's where that one is, it's hidden by everything, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you shook it, and then the label goes on it, and then it goes in those little canisters that have the blue deal, right?
Yes.
Do you put them in the canister with the blue thing, or do you give it to the police officer and he puts it in there, or do you remember?
It varies. I don't.
Sometimes you do it, sometimes they do it, and you don't remember, I take it, whether you put it in there or whether he put it in there.
Correct.
All you know is that once you took it and it ended up in there with your name on it, you gave it to Officer Collins.
Yes, sir.
And that's the last time I think you testified, that was the last time you saw him,
Correct.
because he took it.
Correct.
And that was according to the time on that form, irrespective of the date, the time was
219.
2:19 AM
Yeah.
on May 12th of whatever year.
Correct.
Thank you. That's what it's named.
Mr. Hibbel?
Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
you previously testified that during your career, you've done blood draws for law enforcement several times.
Yes.
Is it routine practice for you to conduct a blood draw when you're presented with a blood permit?
Yes.
And that's upon request of the officer,
Yes.
and you give blood to that officer following the request.
Correct.
Now, in regards to the Dale statement, it was a long time ago, I realize. Was it possible that you miswrote the year?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes, you may.
Once again, going to show you the contents of states four. I'm showing you the blood tube that both I and defense have shown you thus far. Is there a date and time on that blood tube?
8, 5, 12, 19. At 219 AM.
Okay. So, the date on the tube is, May 12th, 2019,
Correct.
and the time 2:19.
Yeah.
And I'm going to very quickly show you the other tube. Does it match?
It does match, yes.
State passes the witness.
Mason?
I'm nothing further from this going.
Okay. May this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor. The state will request a brief recess before calling the next witness.
May this witness be excused? Mr. Armstrong, you're excused. And just to let me inform you, the rule has been invoked, and what that basically means is that as a witness, you are ordered that when you leave this courtroom, you're not allowed to re-enter unless instructed otherwise by the bailiff or myself. And you are not to discuss this case or your testimony with any other witnesses or anyone else except the attorneys. And you also required not to read any news reports or any reports or comments about your testimony. In this case, if you fail to obey the rule, you could be held in contempt of court. And if you're held in contempt of court, you could be sentenced to at least 180 days in jail and a fine up to $500. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you for being here this afternoon. You're excused and you have a blessed day.
All right, thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for the jury, we're gonna take a recess. How much time do y'all need?
10 minutes will be sufficient.
10 minutes. We'll take a 10-minute recess. Will everyone please stand as the jury exit the courtroom? Will be a recess for 10 minutes? You're welcome. You can just leave a cup on the table. Everyone may be seated. Let the record reflect that the court is back in session and cause number 227. In the case of the state of Texas versus Samuel Hayden Falk, let the record reflect that Mr. Falk is present in court with his attorney. Attorney John Macy, the state is present with Assistant Criminal District Attorneys, Attorney Kyle Gasper, and Attorney Andrew Hubel. Let the record also reflect that the jury is now present and seated in the courtroom. Mr. Hubel, you may call Ms. Gasper, you can call your next witness.
State calls Mingling Altamirano.
Okay. Mr. Altamirano? Mendling Altamirano?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Altamirano, would you please come forward? Yeah, she usually bring that with her. Would you come forward, Ms. Altamirano? Ms. Altamirano, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? May put your hand down and take the witness stand.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes, hold on a minute. Mr. Hubel, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, Ms. Altamirano. Can you state your name for the record?
It's Memling Altamirano.
And what's your occupation?
I am a forensic scientist for the crime lab.
And how long have you been a forensic? I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Forensic scientist, approximately 15 years.
And what are your duties as a forensic scientist?
I analyze physical evidence that's submitted by law enforcement, in addition to helping to process crimes.
And what is your educational background?
I have a bachelor's in biology.
And have you received specific training in the area of blood alcohol toxicology?
Yes, I have.
Toxicology, rather. So you're an expert in the field of blood alcohol toxicology,
Yes,
and have you testified before as an expert witness in this field of blood alcohol toxicology
yes,
on many or few occasions?
few occasions.
And would that include in courts in this county?
Yes,
Would that include this court?
yes,
Okay. And are you licensed as a blood alcohol toxicologist?
I am licensed, yes.
And by what body are you licensed?
By what, I'm sorry?
By what agency are you?
Texas Forensic Science Commission.
And how does that licensing process take place?
Normally, you have to get licensed every 2 years. The requirements include taking several hours of additional training for each discipline that you practice in. For example, I practice in biology and blood alcohol, so I would have to take specific training for each of those.
Okay, and you said that you're currently licensed.
Yes,
Were you licensed in May of 2019?
in May of 2019, you know what, I don't remember my exact license date, but it was it was the year of 2019.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes, you may.
I am now showing you what's marked as state exhibit number 4. Do you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
This is, can I?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so this is a blood kit that was submitted for analysis. It, has my markings, which include, the unique lab number that we create for each case that comes into our lab, the exhibit number and my initials, in addition to our crime lab seal, in addition to the sticker that gets printed out every time we create a new case lab number.
So you were certain that this is a blanket you've dealt with.
Yes,
And now I'm going to show you the contents of state exhibit number 4. Do you recognize what these are?
so those are the, 2 blood tubes, plastic tubes where the blood vials are in.
Now I'm going to show you the contents of one of those tubes. Can you tell me what this is?
Yes, so again, this is, one of the blood tubes that one of the blood vials, I'm sorry, that come in those tubes. And it also has my exhibit number, unique, the letter B and my initials in it.
Now, this tube B, was it the one that you used for analysis?
No, I did not.
And does tube B appear to be tampered with in the lab?
No,
And can you identify this one in the same way you identified tube B?
yes, so this one is, vial A. It has my lab number and my initials.
And is vial A the one that you use for your analysis?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And does it appear to be tampered with in the main lab?
No,
And do you recall what condition it is that you received these vials in?
in a sealed condition.
Now, I'm going to tender to defense.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What did you say?
I'm tendering to defense. This is state exhibit 4 in its contents.
Okay, so you're showing it to me for purposes of what?
And
Are you saying that you are wanting to have that admitted as a?
that's right. That's right.
I object to proper credit has been laid yet.
Okay. Hmm. You like to take the witness on voir dire?
Be more specific.
Okay, hold on a minute.
Thank you, Dr. State's Board, this is on sentence.
Okay, the objection is overruled and it's admitted.
Thank you. Now, may I approach this more?
Yes, you may.
Do you analyze the contents of the blood tubes that are contained within State's Exhibit number 4?
I analyze by weight.
Okay. You analyze by A, and the purpose of the analysis was to determine its alcohol content.
So the purpose was to determine if there was ethanol in the vial.
Okay. And do you recall if the lab in which the analysis was taken place in was accredited in May of 2019?
Yes, we've been accredited since 2005.
Okay. And what lab is that?
This is the Jefferson County Regional Crime Lab.
Now, what scientific process did you use to determine the blood alcohol content?
So we use an instrumentation called the Headspace GCFID, which is central gap chromatography with flame ionization detectors.
And were the instruments in the lab working properly at the time of testing?
Yes, they were.
And did you follow the protocol in using those instruments while testing the blood?
I did.
And did that testing produce a result?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Did that testing produce a result?
Yes,
And did you draft a report based on those results?
yes, I did.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes, you may.
I'm now showing you what is marked as State's Exhibit number 6. Do you recognize it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And can you tell me what it is?
This is the report that I created based on the analysis for this case.
Okay. And how do you recognize it?
It has my signature at the very bottom.
Okay. And it's as you drafted, do you see no alterations?
Yes, no alterations.
I am tendering to defense for inspection.
Your Honor, I'm gonna object with the same objection that I objected to a minute ago. That is a conclusory statement based on what I consider to be an improper improper predicate that was laid in order to admit the thing that report purports to be about.
Let me see. Report. Hmm. And what was your would you please state your objection for the record?
Your Honor, my objection was failure to lay the proper predicate because that report, as I understand it, quantifies the testing of something apparently of blood that I don't believe the proper predicate was laid in order to have her be able to testify that no one tampered with it.
If I may.
State, you may respond.
I just wanted to make sure that this was the same, objection that you made previously in regards to Shane.
Essentially,
And I believe the same reasons for why that previous objection were.
Okay, it will be, the objection will be overruled. It goes to, the weight, not the admissibility. This is exhibit number 6.
State would move to, state would offer, state 6.
Okay, and I will overrule this objection. So state's exhibit number 6 is admitted.
And can you tell me, based on the report that you drafted, what the results of that report was?
Yes. So the sample contained greater than 0.400 grams of ethanol per 100 mL of whole blood.
And so that report is saying that it was greater than a 0.4. What is the range of ethanol concentration that the instruments that your lab are calibrated to detect?
So our instrumentation is calibrated, the methods were created for that, were calibrated for a range between 0.01 to 0.4.
And is there a reason for why it is not calibrated to generate results greater than 0.4?
So the instrumentation is actually capable of measuring above that, but it's not calibrated beyond that point because it's where the concentration that high. We're not having.
And was the result of your test greater than a 0.08 blood alcohol concentration?
Yes, they were.
And then following the testing of the blood and the drafting of this report, did that conclude your involvement in this case?
Yes.
State passes deliverance.
Mr. Mason?
thank you. Altamirano, I hope I'm not butchering your name. My name is John Macy. And I represent Samuel Falk in this case. And I just have a couple of questions for you, I think. Gas you said the machine tests for gas phase?
So the instrument, is called is Headspace GCFID. So basically, what it tests is, once I sample the blood vial, I create two small, vials that I seal very well. Those get heated and pressurized. So the instrumentation is actually, testing not the actual liquid, but the vapor above it.
Okay, and I'm sorry. I have kind of difficulty hearing. I have wear a hearing aid, so yeah, I ask you to bear with me. The instrument is called what now?
It's called Headspace GCFID.
Did you say GCFID?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the G stands for gas, I take it.
Gas.
C stands for,
Chromatography.
okay, gas chromatography.
Mhm.
The F stands for what?
Flame,
Flame,
ionization,
ionization, D is
detector.
detector.
Yes.
Okay. So as I understand it, that machine who's the manufacturer?
It's Agilent Technologies.
Okay, and how long has the lab had that particular machine?
I would say definitely over 5 years.
Okay. Do you have more than one or do you only have one?
We have, so that particular system, we only have one of those. But we have other instrumentation that the drug, section uses that comes from the same manufacturer.
Okay, but this is the one you use for alcohol, right?
Yes, sir.
Does it also measure anything other than alcohol?
So that instrumentation is purely used for ethanol.
Ethanol.
Yes.
So was there a reason why you thought you should test for ethanol?
Well, the cases that are submitted to our lab, are submitted to see whether ethanol is present in the blood or not. So once we run the sample, if it's present, then it will detect it.
Okay,
If it's not present, it will not detect it.
so do you get a copy of the police report that goes along with the sample, or do you just get the sample?
I get a copy of the police report normally.
Okay, did you read that, or do you recall?
No, I don't really read them.
Okay.
There's no need for me to read them.
And, the only reason I ask, and it's a little confusing to me, is that the officer testified, and he wrote in his report that he didn't smell any alcohol. So why would you test for alcohol that the officer didn't even smell?
Valid question to ask this witness.
Objection overruled.
So in our submission form, may I refer to my file? In our submission form, we
Could you
have,
show me what you're looking, what the submission form you're talking about?
yes, sir.
May I approach you?
Yes, you may.
Okay, so, the laboratory has
Oh, yeah,
a talk submission form, and in the talk submission form are two boxes. One of them that, asks if you want alcohol analysis only. The other one asks if you want alcohol and drug analysis. In this scenario, the box with alcohol and drug analysis was checked, therefore I analyzed the blood vial for, the presence of ethanol.
I see. Okay, so you're looking at lab submission form. And there's a date stamped on the top of it, I think. Does that say May 18, 19, or is that a 13?
It's a 13.
It's a 13,
Yes, sir.
okay. So that's when you received it?
Yes, so the blood kit was submitted to our laboratory on May 13th of 2019.
Okay. And so I see two lab submission forms.
Okay.
One says toxicology evidence, lab submission, blood specimen kit. That's the one you're talking about, right?
Can I see it, please?
My approach?
Yes, you may.
That's the same one you're looking at, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Look at the next one.
Okay.
Because you said, well, you just testified, you tested it because it said alcohol.
Right.
Well, that one didn't say alcohol, does it?
No, but that's also not a tox submission form. That's called a cease drug laboratory submission, which means that they were asking for drug testing on this one.
Okay, so you're saying that, y'all received, both of these are given to the crime lab, which you work for, right?
Okay.
But you don't do this one, the,
These drugs,
yeah, whatever, you do the other.
yes, I do the tox.
You do the one that uses the GCF ID.
Correct.
Would the GCF ID also be used to do this drug one?
So we only have one GCFID and it's mine, the one I use for ethanol. So they have other instrumentations by the same manufacturer that they use to analyze the drug evidence.
Fair enough. I just was I was a little confused about that. So the instrument, the gas, it uses gas chromatography. And it uses flame, what's the I?
Ionization.
Ionization, and it's a detector.
Right.
So basically, you gotta dumb it down for me, okay?
Okay.
What you're saying is that the instrument uses heat to heat up something, correct? Blood in this case.
So
And when it does that, it's kind of like boiling something. When you boil water, it creates a vapor it creates water vapor or whatever it creates. And then the machine uses gas chromatography to look, if you want to call it look, because it doesn't have eyeballs, but the machine senses the particles. Am I accurate? The ion, the atomic particles, if you want to call it that, that's in the air, or the gas that's above
Your Honor,
the liquid.
is there a question? I'm sorry, I'm having trouble following Mr. Macy's question.
Okay, so,
Well, I guess you can kind of,
well, am I right?
well, let's make a ruling on on his objection first.
I'd also object to the fact that Mr. Macy seems to be testifying from the podium a great deal.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, he has a witness on cross, so he can ask leading questions. But I think what, Mr. Hubel is saying is that I guess you're making statements before you ask your question. And so you're allowed to just ask your question. Okay? You may proceed, and I'll sustain this objection.
The instrument that you use, that you said was yours. Does it detect in this particular case ethanol in the gas space? If that's what it does.
Okay, so I'm gonna clarify the information minus the labs, however, I'm the only one that analyzes blood alcohols are called it mine. But basically, you get a sample, may I use the word, perhaps I can, get a little bit more clear?
Be like it.
Okay. So. Is there a little?
You need some chalk or a marker.
this is-
Do we have any markers? You probably could use
Yeah,
that
I'm
one.
very fine.
Okay, he has one too.
Okay, so here's your blood vial, right? Sorry, I'm not very good at drawing. From this blood vial, I collect 2 samples.
And if you don't mind, the blood vial you're talking about is one of those that's in that kit, right?
Correct, so
Okay.
this is vial A.
Okay.
That's the one I sample.
Okay,
Okay, so when I sample, I go ahead and take a small amount of the blood here, put it in here. It's mixed with what we call an internal standard. So once I'm done with that, I take it to the instrumentation. So the instrumentation, think of it as 2 parts. Think of it as 2 parts. Okay, so these blood vials will go here. They go inside of here. This is the headspace part. They go down, they get pressurized. And then once they get pressurized, they get to equilibrium. So basically, it's based on the, what it's saying is that the amount of ethanol present in the liquid, once it pressurizes, is going to go here into a gas phase. So after that, you have a transfer line between these 2 instrumentations. So what this does is it punctures the vial, but it doesn't get the blood, it gets this part of that. So then that travels through the transfer line. It comes into the GC, which, it acts like an oven. Well, whatever, right oven. In here, it comes through here, you have 2 coils, what we call columns, right? So the gas particles go through each column. And then they go ahead and come out of these detectors. So then this detector produces, there's a computer here, you know. So these detectors will produce signals. That will either tell you, okay, there's ethanol present, and it will give you a quantity, or it would tell you there's no ethanol present. I know it's a bit of a word. So, does that answer your question?
so you said that you take blood out of the vial A and you put it in 2 separate things,
I sample, yes.
samples, and then do you put both samples in this part at the same time, or do you do them one at a time, or how's that?
So the way that they're, the trays, it's basically 1 sample first and then the next one. And then it goes on and on.
Okay. So. How is and then the machine takes it. And does I think you said it heats it up and then it somehow gets the gas transferred over to that side. And then it goes through the columns and then it goes to the detector. And then from the detector, it goes to some computer. And then the computer does some kind of calculation.
Okay, so the computer, before we run any samples, we perform, so think of it almost as 3 steps. We perform a calibration curve. The calibration curve has a range from 0.01 to 0.4. So that gets established first, and basically the calibration curve indicates that your instrumentation is running well. After the calibration curve, we go into I go into a part that's called the quality control. So basically, that's obtaining several reagents that of known ethanol concentration and running them through with that calibration to make sure that the amount that is said that those known ethanol concentrations have are correct. After that, after the calibration passes, after the quality controls pass, then I will start sampling my actual cases. In between the cases, you run controls. So you run controls at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end.
So are you saying that you took a vial with a known amount of ethanol in it and you tested it to see if it gave a reading that was equivalent to that?
Correct. I took a vial, what we called certified reference materials. And basically, they're reagents that we know the concentration of. So once I run it through the curve, I want to make sure that my curve is working correctly, right? So once we run it through the curve, if my reagent says it's supposed to give me a 0.05, then whatever gets produced on that computer will have to give me something close to that. Or identical, if that makes any sense.
So gas chromatography. Gas is gas. Part of the gas, chromatography, but chromatography is what?
Chromatography is basically the data that gets produced. So, so once it runs through the computer, right, each one of these is gonna produce 2 sets of data that look kind of like that, or, so the actual chromatography is this. And this is what I interpret. This is where, it tells me, okay, there's ethanol or there's no ethanol. So basically the chromatography is what gets printed out from the actual computer after it receives the signal from the GC. So the actual results.
So the result is a wave.
May I show you and then with my file?
Sure.
Okay. So there are peaks, that's all peaks. Okay, so this is from the first vial that I tested. And you have your internal standard that always has to be present. And then you have an ethanol concentration that got produced, right? So these are they're peaks and they're related to how much ethanol there is in here. This is the second vial, so it produces 2, just like this one. And they're also the same thing. So you have these peaks, not waves, peaks upon peaks, that get produced due to the signal.
And are those the actual printouts from the machine?
Yes, these are the actual printout from the instrument.
And so those are identical.
No, they're not identical, because whenever you're testing 2, and that's the reason we test two vials per case. They're not identical in the sense that the ethanol concentration that it gives me is not going to be the same concentration all the time. So it's going to give me, a slight variation of that. And then we average it out, and we make sure that it's within a certain percentage before we classify and move forward.
So even though they came from the same vial,
Yes,
they're not the same.
they are the same. It's kind of like, think of it as like a scale. So whenever you get on the scale, you're, I don't know, 145.2. Tomorrow you get on the scale and you're gonna be 145.3. Then you get on the scale again and you're back to 145.2. So basically, it's similar to that. So they are the same samples.
But as I understood your testimony, the machine, essentially what you're saying is that that blood sample broke the machine.
No, that's not what I said.
Okay, maybe I'm mischaracterizing.
Uh-huh.
It was calibrated to a maximum of 0.40,
Correct.
and according to your test, it was higher than what it was calibrated to test for, right?
So it was calibrated, our methods were
So
calibrated.
so the answer is yes?
No, I need to qualify that answer. So, the
I
instrument
think you're
itself,
Responsive, Judge.
Okay.
sorry.
Okay. Objection sustained. You may ask your next question.
Do you know how much alcohol someone would have to drink to have a blood alcohol level of higher than a 0.40?
It depends on several factors.
And like what?
This is, this question,
I asked if she knew, and she answered.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I apologize. State your objection, I'm sorry.
my objection was that the questioning would call for speculation, but if she's only going to talk in regards to what factors might be involved, then I think she could answer. As opposed to stating like an exact amount.
Okay, you're saying that so your objection is called for speculation?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, objection sustained.
Do you know how many drinks it would take to get an alcohol level that high?
It depends on several factors.
What do you base that on?
It depends on, what we call volume of distribution. It depends on whether the person was a male or female, when they stopped drinking, the age of the person, the height of the person. So several factors, yes.
And is that part of your training?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Do you know how many drinks on average for an average male person, 35 years of age?
This question very clearly calls for speculation.
I think he's giving her, well, I'm gonna overrule your objection. You may ask your question.
Do you know how many? So Samuel Hayden Block, according to the information, was 31 years of age on May the 11th of 2019. Now, who appeared to have been, according to the DIC 25, which was a form that was filled out by Officer Collins. That he testified to. That Samuel was 5'6" tall, 135 pounds. 31 years of age. Do you know how much alcohol Samuel would have to drink to raise his blood alcohol level by 0.02%?
Where are you getting the 0.02%, sorry?
I got it off my top of my head.
Okay, so you
I
want
guess what I've read some literature, okay, that claim that one drink, alcoholic shot, or one beer, or one glass of wine
He's making a.
would
statement that's
raise the
insubstantial.
blood alcohol.
Okay, Mr. Macy, he was making an objection.
Making a statement that hasn't been substantiated off from the stand. The statement that hasn't been substantiated off from the stand is.
What he's saying is that, you're making a statement, you're not asking a question. So you're allowed to ask questions on direct or cross-examination.
I was trying to answer her question. She asked me where I got that number.
Okay, but
And I
She's not-
apologize if you don't, I understand. She doesn't ask questions, I answer. the
Right.
questions. I apologize. Judge.
Additionally,
and your objection will go down?
and additionally, I want to renew my objection that he's asking, like, very specifically, like, something that calls for her to speculate.
I think she said that there are several factors that has to go into for her to make to give an opinion as to the question that he's asking. And so he has to state those factors before she can derive an answer to his question. And so I think he was in the process of giving her the factors that she needs. So your objection will be overruled. You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. So I guess my question is, do you know how much a male 31 years of age who weighs 135 pounds, blood alcohol would rise by drinking one glass of wine or one beer or one alcoholic shot of whiskey?
So yes, you can, based on the information, it would take approximately maybe, in a range between 11 to 15, drinks, standard drinks to get to 1.4.
And you get that based on what?
Based on, you're giving me an age, right? So based on the age, on the volume of distribution, on the weight, on his height, those factors.
Okay. So if I Googled it and it said took 20 drinks, the Google would be wrong. Right?
I don't know what Google says.
You think, or your opinion is, he would have to drink 10 drinks to have a blood alcohol level of 0.4. Is that what you tell me?
The range will be 11 to 15.
11 to 15.
Yes, sir.
11 to 15 in what time frame?
11 to 15 drinks. So basically, the only time frame I have is from the time of stop to the time of draw. So at the time of draw, at the time of test, I'm sorry, the concentration was 0.4 whenever I analyzed it. So the time frame would be, we can assume that in those 2 hours, he wasn't drinking while he was under the custody of the police. I would hope so.
Understand. my question was more general than that. I guess what I was trying to find out was. I mean, you studied it, so when you drink a drink, then your body starts processing, right?
Yes,
And so if you drink something, then your blood, if you drink one drink, your blood will raise to a certain amount and then it'll stop. And then it'll go no higher because you only drank one drink. Whatever number that is, it'll go up to a certain amount and then it'll start going back down, right? Because your body is metabolizing it. Is that right?
correct, so,
And that's why you gave the range of between 11 and 15? It was,
no, I gave the range, it wasn't based on whether this person was in the elimination phase or in the absorption phase. The range was strictly given based on the concentration that I obtained and the factors you gave.
um, now, you chose to test one of those vials. And when you saw that the blood alcohol level was as high as it was, you chose to not test the other one, right?
So I chose not to test the other one, because normal procedure for us is that we leave the second vial for the defense in the event that they would like to test.
Uh, so when did you test that?
I tested the vial, oh, there we go.
And well,
On May 21st, 2019.
okay, so, if I understood you, you said that you got it in the lab on May the 13th, right?
Yes,
You tested it on May the 21st,
yes, sir.
and then you wrote the report on May the 23rd?
Yes,
So you don't write, because the report. It's, well, edification, information, if you want to call it that, your report has a date on it, May 23rd,
yes.
but I didn't know whether that is the same day that you tested or whether that's a different day. And so what you're telling me is that you do the report a couple days later, or you did in this instance.
So it depends on how the testing, when it's finished. So normally we'll sample, let's say today, the instrumentation runs, I'll come back tomorrow and see the results once they're running. I perform my calculations and then I have to issue out a report. However, every single report that we create has to be reviewed by another qualified analyst to make sure that whatever I'm reporting and whatever, process I use is correct. And normally, once that analyst, approves the report, it gets a finalized, date of copy, which is what you have.
Okay. So the the lab received it on May the 13th. And who receives that?
Usually our lab techs, so we have two lab techs that are usually at the front, and they receive it. In this scenario, it was, Miss Stacy Shettle, which, she's no longer with us.
Okay, so Stacy Shettle, worked at the lab. And she's the one that received it on that particular day, and what would she have done with it?
So normally what we do is once we get the blood kits, we make sure that everything's sealed, that the information matches the submission form, and then they get stored in a refrigerator.
Okay. Why do you refrigerate it?
It's to maintain the blood.
To maintain the blood? What do you mean by that?
I mean, normally there's, is to prevent more ethanol loss or to prevent any microorganisms from, being created in the blood.
Okay. Can alcohol be created in the vial as well as dissipate in the vial?
Alcohol tends to, dissipate in the vial, as time progresses.
Right, okay. So it can be created in the vial, is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that, no,
Normally, it would dissipate, is that what you just said?
usually we lose, ethanol because it's a volatile.
I'm sorry, you keep using stuff like normally and usually. To me, that means that occasionally it could increase in the vial. Am I wrong?
So there are very specific, scenarios in which that may happen, but it's not usually the case.
Prior to it getting to the lab, you don't know what happened to it, do you?
No, we don't.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
Mr. Hill?
Briefly, or Mayor Pro,
Yes, you may.
showing you State's Exhibit number 6 again. This is the blood alcohol report that you drafted. Correct? Okay. And that shows a reading of higher than 0.40 BAC, correct?
Yes.
So Mr. Mason characterized that result as breaking the machine. You disagreed with that.
Yes, I disagree with that.
And why is that?
Because like I mentioned before, the instrument is actually able to detect a lot, higher than that, except that our methods were validated to 0.4. So for me to report anything, above a 0.4 would be unethical because our methods were not validated past that.
Okay. So it's simply higher than the scale that your machine is able to read or able to, well. So, could you explain one more time?
Sure. So the instrument is able to read higher temperatures than, higher concentrations, I'm sorry, than 0.4. But the methods that we use, which are basically, tests that we perform over a period of time to make sure that the instrument is actually producing reliable results, can only go up to 0.4. Therefore, we went ahead and, I went ahead and reported it as greater than 0.4, because to give you an exact number after 0.4 for me would be unethical because our validation methods are not created beyond that.
But you can be certain that the result is above a 0.14, is above a 0.4, sorry.
It's greater than 0.4, yes.
And just briefly, you received your lab received the blood on May 13th of 2019,
Yes,
and the vial was tested on the 21st
yes.
of that month. Is it unusual for testing to occur within that time frame?
No, it's actually pretty, pretty fast by other people's standards. Other labs have, backlogs that are greater than that.
Okay. And you talked about sort of a peer review process where, once you draft a report, another analyst will look at the procedures and what that you use in that process. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So every report that we create, whether it's in, the top section or any other section, has to be reviewed by another qualified person in
And-
the field.
And that was the case in this case as well.
Yes, it was.
No further questions. Safe passage.
Ms. Macy?
No, that's it. I have no further questions here.
Okay, may this witness be excused?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ms. Altamirano, you may be excused. The witness, the rule has been invoked. And what that basically means that once you leave this courtroom, you're not allowed to come back in unless you are instructed to come in by the bailiff or the judge. And you're not to discuss this case with no other witnesses or anyone else except the attorneys. And you're not to read any reports or make any comments of testimony on this case. Now, if you violate the rule, you can be held in contempt of court. Thank you for coming here this afternoon. You're free to go, and you have a blessed day.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you. State, you can call your next witness.
State rep, Your Honor.
Let's see. Okay, let's see. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we're gonna break for the afternoon. And thank you. We'll have you back tomorrow at 1 o'clock. You'll meet in the hallway. And once we're ready for you to come in, you'll come in and then we'll resume with the trial. Okay? Everyone, please stand as the jury exits the courtroom. You can just pull out a part, the back part. Yeah. Okay. Just follow the bailiff. Okay. Court will be in recess till 1 o'clock tomorrow.